All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And am I loud enough?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. And the headset, is it too distracting or shitty?
No, 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 it's fine.
Okay. Just want to make sure it's on brand.
It's good. It's good. So, all right. So, um, the first time I did this, the talk went about an hour, which is way too long, really. I mean, we had to
Okay.
split it up into a couple pieces. So really I'm aiming for like 25, 30 minutes, which is not a lot of time, but it's enough in one session that someone listening, on their drive
Sure.
can listen to it and not get bored. So what I want to do is have you introduce yourself in just a second. I'll do like a
hmm
short intro and then you can do a better intro. And I'd use that your own intro of yourself instead of mine. So you feel free to brag on yourself as much as you'd like.
Okay.
All right. All right. So this is Angie Meeker from the Freelancers Conference podcast. And today we have with us Chris Johnson, who is one of our great speakers. And he is going to speak to us specifically about sales and how we can really knock it out of the park with sales. A lot of freelancers are just really petrified of sales and they never really dig
hmm
in and figure out how to do it right. Or really honestly, they don't do it very much at all. Like they really only rely on existing customers to refer work to them,
hmm
and even that process they kind of take it for granted. They never really dig in and learn how to do it. And so Chris is going to share with us some strategies for how we can do that and really become better at our actual sales processes. So Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I run a company called Simplifilm, which is a motion graphics product design company. We've served clients like Brad Feld, Ariana Huffington, Ryan Holiday several times, Robert Greene, the author of the book Mastery, Pam Slim, Seth Godin, and a lot of other folks that we've sold and actually gotten money from, even though other people, they're surrounded by people that are asking to work for exposure. And I want to talk about how you can do that a little bit. I want to talk about that whole process if you'll give me an opportunity to.
Yeah, that's really great. That's fantastic because you hear freelancers all the time. They get a
Mhm.
Well, you know this. They get approached with people saying, "Work for me for exposure." So
Right.
it's like so you're saying we'll get into the flip side of that then. That's great. So, okay. So I have a few very specific questions I want to talk about.
Sure.
And we have a few questions from folks who sent in their questions and said, can you please have him talk about this thing for me?
Great.
So we want to be sure to answer those too. But let's go ahead first, before we do that, let's go ahead
Mhm.
and talk about what you just said. So why would a company come to you and say, I want to pay you when they have other people doing very similar work offering to do it for free? Why? Like,
Sure.
what's the point?
There's a few reasons. Number one, they want accountability and reliability. If
Yeah.
you're not charging, if you're working with somebody like Ariana Huffington, the money that she pays you is nothing. It's not a risk. The time that she's investing is the risk. So she'd rather pay for it and get it right than risk having 5, 10, 20 hours into a project and have it become random. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's where it's you just got to have, if they're truly a VIP, you just got to have the attitude that they are, what are they risking? Their time. They have other things they could be doing, or if this project fails, it's a bigger deal. And so if it's not an internship position where you're trading. I mean, there are times where it makes sense to do free work for
Sure.
sure. I'm not disparaging it, but usually you approach them and they don't approach you. That's the kind of difference. If they approach you and they ask you to ante up for exposure, generally it's not a good plan and it's not a good fit.
It's not a good fit. Okay,
Right.
so you've said something just now that I think
hmm
for a lot of creative and technical freelancers, what you just said is the first exposure they're going to have to this idea as it relates to their pricing and their
Right.
sales. And you talked about the risk on the client side.
Yep.
So can you talk more about how their risk, the risk that's involved on the client side helps determine like the length of the sales process, the cost of the
Sure.
project, the project management that goes through it, because all of that's involved in
So
the
look, I
risk on
mean,
the client side. And you don't people don't talk about it enough to beginning freelancers, I think.
sure. So the client is, I mean, here's what we understand at our company. whether you're working, I mean, we have a mix of corporate clients and non-corporate clients, and probably 70% of our clients are corporate. Somebody, if they're going to get us to make their video, they're risking their job. Okay, if the video fails, for a marketing video, it's going to be the one thing that the CEO or the boss's boss sees, and they're
Right.
risking their job. And you have to acknowledge that and honor that and understand that those are the stakes. It's not just the money; it's that they're risking their job to work with you. And when you understand that, your behavior becomes different. Okay, it becomes, rather than this client is demanding, it's that this client has risked his job. And if you get ahead of it and get out in front of it, and even say, hey, buddy, I really appreciate you working with us. I know that this is an important project to you, and I know that this might be the only thing that the CEO looks at in an entire year's worth of work,
Yeah.
and that'll change the dynamics of the relationship. The time is much more important to most good clients than the money. So you have to make sure that you honor that, and you honor that not by rushing into the project, but by building a good spec, by having engagement rules that make sense. So, if they're 3 weeks late getting their logo, it's going to be, 3 weeks or more getting the final delivery. If you're chasing assets, you have to have business arrangements that support that. So, we charge, we're paid in full the day the first draft is sent out, that sort of thing. And and then that'll take the risk out of what that will do is it'll take the risk away from the client and make them easier to work with on your end. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Why do you think? Okay, so one of our other speakers at the conference, his name is
Mm-hmm.
Jose. He and his partner Chris. I've watched a video with them. They're sitting in a room of probably 50 freelancers, all
Mm-hmm.
in high-paying creative and technical fields.
Right?
And Chris says to them, okay, let's imagine that we're going to create a logo for a customer. How much is it going to cost? One of them says $300, which is ridiculous, but they say 300. The next
Sure.
person says 1,500. The next person says 15,000. And he goes on and he's like, none of you even ask me, what is this logo going to be used for? Like, is it going on the
Sure.
plane? Is it going on all
Mm-hmm.
the packaging, all of the shipping material? Is it he said you immediately, you assumed that the risk in this project for the client was very low, and you priced according to that. But what you didn't ask me was what all it was going to be used on. And understanding that this was a very quick conversation, but he went on
Sure.
to say, for this company, they get it wrong. They get this logo wrong, and they've changed it on every single one of their assets. And then they have to go back, and it's not just a matter of redoing the logo. It's a matter
Right.
of that entire process having to get redone again. And he said, now let me ask you, how much is the logo worth? And everyone's like, oh, well, let's raise the price on the logo because of that. And I think it was one of the first illustrations I'd heard for
Mm-hmm.
for creative and technical freelancers anyway, that helped illustrate the fact that they don't stop to consider the risk for the customer. But why though? Why do you think they do that? Why do you think they rush right from, like, they skip over that? I think
The truth
why?
is the truth is that most freelancers only have 2 to 4 weeks of work booked out on their calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's when they're doing good, and they feel super busy when that's happening.
Yes, that's true.
So they don't have the abundance mentality. They figure if they say no to this and don't, take this opportunity down, there'll never be another one. And it's okay to have a client. It's okay to not have a client. Where it's not okay is to have a bad client. And if you don't set up the business relationships, the business arrangements suitably in the early going, then you're guaranteeing yourself you're going to have a bad client.
That's truth. That's just truth. Okay. So you're talking about good and bad clients right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I feel like every person who is speaking at the conference, no matter what they're speaking on, they have some part of what they're speaking about that is related to that somehow. So how do you, for your company, how do you define a good and bad customer? Because it's not just they have the money to pay for it and they have an interesting project.
Yeah. No, here's the truth. 100% of all bad customers are the fault of the provider, the freelancer. There's no exceptions.
So tell us more.
If a customer is bad, it's your fault. Here's why. You don't have to, they're going to send you signals before they come that they're going to be a pain in the neck to deal with. If they don't want to pay a deposit, if they don't respect your time, if they ask for a million different versions of the proposal, they're telling you, hey, I'm going to be a pain in the neck and you probably shouldn't work with me. That's what is going on. And so in lieu of, so believe them when they tell you that. And let it go, okay. So this isn't the fun,
I want a poster of that says, believe me, I'm a bad customer.
Yeah, no,
you don't want to work with me.
But what freelancers do that's wrong is they go to sites like Clients from Hell, and they engender contempt for their industry. And that's almost, when a freelancer does it, it's almost always a sign of a novice or a low skill provider. It's never, you don't see elite people very often making fun of clients, because why the heck should a client know how to speak in a design language? Why the heck should a client know how to generate a spec? Those are the things that highly skilled professionals do. The difference between a consultant and a developer is the fact that a consultant at a good level can understand what's necessary, understand what the moving parts are, and break it down and give that to the client as a project. If a developer just wants to say, okay, what do you want me to code today? That's not thinking on behalf of their client. That's not being empathetic. So every client problem is the fault of the provider. I cannot think of any exceptions. Every client that I've had that's been a problem has been my fault. They've had signals beforehand, and if only I'd listened when they were flaky on, like whatever, it's the case. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't work with flaky clients. I'm saying that the first thing that you do as a freelancer is fill your calendar. Okay, that's the first thing. That's you sell dates in the future, and you make sure you're booked. Okay, that's job A. And you make sure that you have solid delivery dates for all of your projects and all of your milestones every time. That's the first job. So you're productizing yourself. The second job is to raise your prices and raise the caliber of the clients that you're working with. So job one, secure your future. Think abundantly. Job two is do that, and then job three is to sell for an hour a day. If you sell for an hour a day, then you won't have any problems. But you have to do it every day. You can never be too busy to sell.
Okay, God, so you're saying a lot right now I want to talk about. Okay.
Sure.
I know I want to talk to you about the abundant stuff, because I know that you will be able to speak very clearly to it.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I want to talk to you about filling your pipeline. So, okay. So I think so many freelancers, they stumble into their work full time. They stumble into wanting to do their work full time. So it started out, they were working for someone else, and they started getting a little side work on the side. And know this, every little project they got, they were super excited about it. They were like, oh my God, this is
Somebody
like Christmas money, And so somewhere along the way though, this is really hard. It is really hard to shift from every little project I need to take it to I can pick. There is money out there in the world that will come to me. There's not like 4 clients left in the whole world. It's really hard to make that shift. And I would really like to hear you talk about how can an individual freelancer begin to shift their mindset from that scarcity to really truly believing there's enough out there. To believing it, because that belief that there's enough out there in the first place is part of what drives the confidence when you have to pick up the phone and make sales calls.
Right. Well, the first thing you do is to sell a little bit every day. Okay. You can't if you're, I don't recommend for most people that are practicing to do more than an hour a day. That should be enough to put you into the $150,000 a year category if you consistently sell an hour a day and do it 5 days a week. It's all you need to do. And it's, instead of watching Game of Thrones, sell for an hour. And it's a process, and we'll get into that in the conference for sure. But if you're about to have a lobster dinner, you're not going to get tempted to go into Hardee's or Roy Rogers or whatever the restaurants call these days, because it's just not appealing to you. You don't want to spoil your appetite. And so you have to be honest with yourself and assess think about your clients. Do you like working with them? If you don't like working with them, then that's your, you have to realize that everything is your fault and everything's controllable. And so all you have to do is spend an hour a day, and then that'll be enough to have, say, 10 sales conversations a week. And if you get one or two of those each week and take one or two projects in a week at $3,500, then that's your income, and that's all you have to do to have a good life.
So I guess it was probably in the last quarter last year.
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot every year releases this report of their agencies. Their agencies do all sorts of work. It's creative and technical.
Right.
The people that are working with them. They release this report of how their agencies get business, and it was some huge disparity. It was like 87% or something like that of the HubSpot agencies relied almost entirely on referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
nothing wrong with
that directly corresponded to that percentage being in the bottom, and the group that proactively had a sales department, they said that they almost entirely rely not on referrals, that they rely on going out and actually generating business from people who didn't know them previously, and not just like Facebook ads and things like that, but like actual, like old school business development. How, like, if you're the freelancer that's sitting at home and you've relied for 5-10 years only on referrals, how do you suggest they begin to transition their business to coming in other ways? Because the first thing they're going to think is go hop on a phone doing a cold call, and there's a place for that. I know that there's a place for that, and it can work really well, but they're scared of it. So talk to us a little bit about some of the options for transitioning from referrals only to other methods.
So first, you want to optimize the way you're getting referrals. Referrals only people usually are passive about it. And I'm going to guess that HubSpot's survey did not include, say, asking for referrals. So once you've had 20 clients, if you've served 20 different clients and it's been pleasant for you and they've been the right people, then you're permanently secure as a freelancer. The first step, and it's a big leap, is to call them on the phone, be willing to interrupt them. Okay. don't overthink this. If they're over 30, especially, it's not a big deal. Be willing to interrupt them and ask for referrals from your referral sources. That's kind of sort of phase one, and do it deliberately. So if you've had 20 clients, you call 2 a day, you'll get a hold of 1 out of 2, and every month you'll have heard from your clients, hey, this is Chris from Simplifilm. Really love working with you on this project. Do you need any other projects, or do you know anybody in your company, is there any vendor that does this that needs a project? And the answer is no. Okay, thanks, goodbye. And usually it's going to be no, but it's going to be yes enough times. So if you do that every day, that's worth some business. And that's it. To segue beyond that, I guess I would recommend starting with trying to create conversations around what you do in a natural, sort of non-threatening, non-salesy way. When people say that somebody's coming off as salesy, what they're really saying is that the salesperson that they're encountering has a low level of skill. So whenever somebody comes off as salesy, they have a low level. They're dealing with somebody that has a low level of skill and a low level of authority. So I would say try to start conversations with people that are like the ones that you like. LinkedIn searches are a good place to start this. So a buck or two a day to be on LinkedIn, and you would, I ask people, what's your focus for this quarter? That's an innocuous question.
Yeah, it is.
And that question, hey, it's Chris. Great to be connected on LinkedIn. What's your focus for this quarter? And that's it's a tricky question because it's a qualifying question. It's in text expander. Okay. Actually, Chris, my focus, and if you get that question from me, you can choose to disconnect from me on LinkedIn. No big deal. I've got 2,000 connections. I'm not going to miss one.
Right.
And if you think I'm being spammy, or you'll answer if you see that in my profile I might do videos and those videos might help you. You'll say, awesome question. I actually wanted to build a demo video. It's not this quarter that it's going to start. It's going to start next quarter. Oh, really cool. And then you talk it up, and then you CRM it and follow up normally. And then you do that at scale for an hour a day. In an hour on LinkedIn with Text Expander, I can hit maybe 250 people. It's 4 a minute. You just do your list, oldest to newest. You pull up a filter and you just bang it out.
Yeah.
Boring, but it works. No, it
But
is.
it
It's
works.
tedious. Sure. It's tedious, but it works.
But it's funny because so many folks are sitting there with that great big list, basically,
Hmm.
just doing nothing with it, and they think if I reach out to them, they're going to say no, or
They
exactly
will.
what you said, they're going to think I'm spammy. So what? Like, God, so what? They're
But they're not.
already
They're
not
gonna.
your customer.
So yeah.
You're already not
So
interacting with them.
your existing customers will respect the hustle. Okay, they're gonna have another
Yeah.
level of respect for you most of the time. That's what your existing customers are gonna do. Your non-customers are going to stay non-customers. They weren't customers before. They're
Yeah.
not customers now. Nothing has changed. They've told you no, and no hurts. I'm not going to say that it doesn't hurt. It hurts me every day. I always, like, every day that I prospect, and I do it 3 days a week now, and I do it 3 days a week for 2.5 hours each day. It works better for time blocking purposes. I recommend 60 minutes a day, but I just do it 3 days a week now, and that's enough to do $600,000 in revenue per year. And I got to pay my people, and that's sometimes another, getting the deliveries done is another matter.
Yes. Well.
I'm transparent about that, as people that follow me know. But the process is math, and there are people that have called me a douchebag before. And you know what? This dude's somebody that doesn't, I don't care. If you want to call me a douchebag, I can judge you right back. Am I a douchebag? All right, you get some therapy, asshole. Whatever.
Well, and
Um,
also you probably, I mean, that wouldn't have been a good fit for you anyway. Like, as a colleague, as a customer,
no, I mean, who
you
knows?
know what I mean? Like, let them go.
Like, me and my worst moment is not a fit for anybody. I'm not suitable
Yes.
for humanity.
Yeah.
So you get a guy on a bad day, and maybe his wife divorced him. Maybe he learned
Yes.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Who cares? It's about where he's at in the moment, and
Yeah.
maybe he hasn't eaten in 7 hours and he's not. He's hungry. Uh, who
Have you
knows?
eaten, Chris? Have you eaten today?
What am I a little bit?
No, you're not.
Am
I'm
I
kidding.
snarling a little bit too
I'm
much for
kidding.
you?
No, it's true. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that's true. So that's one of the questions that someone asked me
Hmm.
specifically to ask you today was, how do you get over the fear of, and we're talking about it right now, but I want to make sure
Hmm.
that I very specifically ask this question. How do you get over the fear of talking on the phone to a prospect?
Well, first, let me tell you that I believe, like Jeb Blunt does in balanced prospecting, it's not just being on the phone.
Yeah.
That's not enough. You need to have a few irons in the fire. And I don't want to be put into a shoebox as the cold calling guy.
Yeah.
I do a fair amount of telephone prospecting. I don't do as much as I should, probably, and there's always a sense of dread around it. The way that you get over it is that you start small and do it for a a low amount of time that's easy to win, each day. So all you have to do is 15 minutes a day. Call 5 past customers. I have um, clients. I have people that were leads, but we never connected. We never closed the deal. I have people that didn't have the budget at the time, and I have people that left their jobs. And I call them up and say, "Hey, I see you're in a new job. Can I support you in your new digs?"
Yeah.
It's contextual, and you're there to serve them, and you're there to help them. And if they need something, great. If not, fine. It's not, they don't need it right now. It's cool.
Yeah.
And you're selling an appointment. You're not overcoming an objection. And that's, and you're saying, okay, let's talk about what you need and your timetable for getting a new demo video, for getting some new PHP work, for getting another batch of SEO on your thing. Do you even understand what SEO is? Yeah. And then if you're doing other marketing, like a webinar, I'd love to invite you to my webinar about writing a script for a video. It's next week. It's a reason to call.
Yeah.
I would also say that you want to have value and be of service. Those are the two ideas that you want to have in your mind. So if you're going to do a webinar, and I recommend doing webinars, I don't do them enough. You should do one. Inviting somebody to a webinar is a nice thing, a nice call to get. Hey, this is Chris from Simplifilm. You've been a lead. You looked into getting a video with us for once. I wasn't a fit then. All I want to do now is invite you to a webinar next week where you can learn how we write scripts. And if that's a fit for you, then maybe we can convince you to keep going. That's it. The other thing
It's
that
a
I want,
kindness. It becomes a kindness to them.
yeah,
Really.
I'm inviting you as a guest to a webinar that I'm
Yeah.
putting on, that I put a lot of work into. That's a different conversation than, hey, you want to buy my shit?
It is, right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But you
Um,
know what though?
is my money ready
It goes back to the abundance stuff, because
yet? Hmm.
if your mindset is, oh my God, I have to take this work, I have to get this work, I have to get this, then you can't give. It's hard to give out of that,
Oh yeah,
you
if you
know?
can't pay the light bill, you can't think of anything else but paying the light bill.
Yeah.
And I call it the stink of desperation. And
Yeah.
once the stink of desperation is on you, it is really hard to make a sale. And
Yeah.
then and that sucks. And you're we've all been there. It's terrible. And the way that you get out of it is by the only way to get out of it, and it's a paradox, is that you can't focus on yourself and your kids and your problems. You got to
Yeah.
focus on other people. You got to
Yeah.
focus on how am I going to serve how am I going to serve whoever I'm talking to? What am I going to do to be of service? And you do it, and then the other thing that we haven't talked about, and I want to drill into everybody's heads, is
Yeah.
it's all about velocity. Okay, it is not about doing all this research on every person that you're going to talk to. You do for a lead that comes in 2 to 3 minutes worth of research before the proposal. Okay, that's all you need to do. That's enough. Where you can open up their LinkedIn in one tab, their website in another tab, their Twitter in another tab, their Facebook. You can stalk them real quick. Turbo stalk is what I call it, and you just look at them and see if you understand this guy. That's you know you're not going to get anywhere if you don't make, say, 30 attempts an hour.
Yeah. 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 Yes. Okay. So I want to also talk a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
failure. And we've chatted like so briefly about this, because so
Mm-hmm.
here's, and maybe you can, I will let you tell your story. But for listeners, when I say failure, I don't always mean like flat out down and like everything's broken, it's terrible, it's awful. Like failure comes in lots of ways. And for some folks, failure happens as you're being successful, and there are ways to learn from that too along the way. And so I want to hear a little bit about, I'd like to hear you talking about, how do you get over failure? How do you move past it?
Oh.
Why did you, when you quote unquote failed in your business, why didn't you get stuck in that?
Well, you do get stuck in it. I mean, first, the only way to get out of is to stop failing, in my opinion, is to get out of your own head. Okay? Because if you think about your problems and the fact that you haven't sold enough videos, or you don't have enough Facebook followers, or whatever you're trying to do, um, you it becomes this vicious tape that plays on loop in your head. Oh my gosh, this designer doesn't like working with me. Oh my gosh, I had to put this vendor off and couldn't pay him this week. Oh my gosh, this, and that's it. So the first thing that I do is I'm not like super into affirmations, but you have a print out the things that you've successfully done. Like, I've been a good husband to my wife. I've raised my kids. I have, I've gotten to do 400 video projects that I sold myself. I've gotten to work with some of the most talented designers in the face of the earth. I've gotten to close at 15 Fortune 500 companies. I've gotten, that stuff changes the context. Then you think about service. So how can you serve others? And they don't necessarily, like the kind of videos that we do, the explainer type videos, they might not be around in 5 years. So if you focus on what people need, then they're going to send you signals as to what they need and how you can help. So you focus on that, and then you look at your reality. And then once you've sort of fortified yourself with your past accomplishments, and you're focused on serving other people, then you look at your reality and you can assess it more clinically without it being in the end of the world. So in 2015 we had a massive amount of overhead, and I had to flip the company around in a hurry, and it was pretty scary. And we did it while serving clients and getting deliveries done on time, and it was, there were some difficulties around it, and there was some stuff that I'm glad I learned from. But I couldn't have done it if I'd have thought, oh, everything's fine, or it's going to be fine in a week. You needed to know exact numbers. I needed to get $62,000 by the end of January with $11,000 in the bank. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that by having $24,000 worth of deliveries. I'm going to do that by offering incentives for $10,000, and I'm going to do that by borrowing $5,000 from whatever. That's how we did it. You have to address objective reality. Delusion is pleasant, but it just makes you panic and spin, and you change. One of my mentors, Kevin Nations, said there's no such thing as drama. Only turn drama into data. So if you have a business issue, we needed to have $50,000 in a hurry. Make it a business issue, and then you're calmer and you go about solving that business issue. You can break it up into smaller pieces and knock it out. So that's how you overcome failure, and it sucks every time. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that it's easy. You're in it and it's in your head. It's like tooth pain, man, and it panics you. Nothing you can do about it. But that I need to sell 10 tickets to Freelancers conference today. I need to do this. I need to do that. That's it. That's where you got to be.
It's true. So that's interesting that you mentioned Kevin. How do you know Kevin, or how did you guys come to know each other?
How did I meet Kevin? I met him so I'm also from Columbus back in my past life.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so he's
all roads lead to Columbus, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so he was a friend of mine named Michael Drew. Do you know Michael?
I don't think so.
Went to church with me at Xenos at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to go to Xenos. Kevin became my friend, acquaintance there, and then I joined his Chillionaires program a couple years ago. Yeah, I guess a year and a half ago now. Went through that and got to know him a little bit that way. So, he talks about making drama into data. It's just data, just a number.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, and it's addressable.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I wanted to make sure that we kept this kind of brief tonight. But is there anything that you'd like to say about what you are excited to share at the conference, or what you're hoping people take away from your sessions and workshops at the conference?
Well, what I want to share is a method of, there are other ways of getting clients that I use and respect. I'm going to share a $0 guerrilla style way that if you've served 3 people and they've paid you before, this will allow you to continue to have more clients and fill your pipeline. What we're going to talk about is first filling your calendar. Then we're going to talk about raising your prices and having a perpetual cycle where you're always, able to command more fees with low risk by filling your calendar, then raising your prices. That's the goal, and it won't happen automatically. You need to do it by working at it, 45 minutes to 90 minutes a day. And that's what we're going to talk about. It's what we did at SimpliFilm to go from $2,500 per project to over $15,000 per project. It works. It works for just about every business.
Yeah.
There might be some exceptions or some kinds of businesses that are highly competitive, at a particular time. But really, there's a bazillion explainer video companies out there, and we still do fine, by using the same methods. And it allows you to practice and allows you to have security. And if you do it for 3 weeks, you'll get results.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know that every single person who's presenting, every one of our experts that are presenting at the conference,
Mm-hmm.
a portion of what they will speak about leads back to raising your prices.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not And it's not that you raise your price and then get to execute what they're talking about. It's that when you execute what they're talking about, you earn the right then to raise your price. Or don't get me wrong, there is a point where you just simply raise your price because you can, but each one of the speakers are going to share really, because for most freelancers, that's the goal, is to be able to raise their price so that they have the freedom and flexibility to take the work that they want and live the life that they want. And each one of these sessions at the conference are going to help freelancers.
Awesome.
Going to help you do that. If you're listening and you want to know how do you get your prices and your projects to the place where you can have the work that you want, work with the customers you want, and live the life you want, you need to register for the Freelancers Conference, April 28th through 30th here in Columbus, Ohio, and you can register at freelancersconference.com. Awesome. That's all for tonight. You can follow us on Twitter, also at freelancersconference.com, and Facebook at freelancersconf. Twitter's freelancersconf, not freelancersconference.com. We'll fix that later. So, all right. Well, Chris, where can people find you?
Simplifilm.com, simplifilm.com, and that's the best place to find me right now.
Very good. All right. Well, we will see you in April. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye.